Okay, electric cost and service study, MMPP. Yep.
Hi guys.
How you doing?
I figure I'm just going to stay in here. That's what I saw, so I'll just follow suit. My name is Andy Ross. I appreciate the opportunity to speak before council. I'm here to talk about cost service study and a little bit about our organization, how we run a cost service study, and then handle any questions. I could probably talk really in depth about what we do, but the man in the uniform told me I had 15 minutes. So I paid attention to that kind of presentation. So I'm going to keep this high level. If there's any questions, go ahead and ask them, or afterwards, when you have a chance to digest some of the information, you can pass them through Scott or me directly. I'll have some cards I'll pass out. NMPP Energy is based out of Lincoln. It has about 200 members, municipalities, all from sizes about 1,000 in population to 30,000 in population, about the largest. So we're a group of small municipalities that have gotten together, and we have other branches. We have a wholesale electric, Municipal Energy Agency of Nebraska. We have a wholesale gas and a retail gas. But we also have just a consulting services in ARM, which provides software support, legal support, any kind of services the members want. The members drive it. It's a nonprofit organization. One of the major ones that we offer is cost service study. When we had the request for proposal, we submitted that, and I'm here to kind of talk about what we do on our final report. First thing we do when we assess this is we put a financial plan together for the utility. It usually looks out one previous year, a test year, and 5 years looking forward. The reason we do that is we have an ear to the ground as far as the industry, especially on wholesale power costs, transmission, this whole transition into the MISO RTO network. I apologize for the acronyms. But essentially we have an ear to the ground, so we can develop a pro forma that has our projections in it and show a levelized rate track, as opposed to just designing 1 year or 2 years of rates and then being out of there. We look 5 years down the road, and it's an interactive model. It's a one-page sheet that shows all revenues, expenses, depreciation, capital improvements. And so I get on the, we usually get on a conference call at that point. We talk to the utility superintendent, anybody else who wants to be on the conference call, and we get that pro forma situated about how much on the capital improvements are coming up, what should be bonded, and it's very interactive. We can see what are the impacts to the ratepayers then. We try to do levelized rates. We do them on a utility basis as opposed to cash basis, which basically means we look at net income levels and cash reserves. And we spread out capital improvements. Typically, if you're going to replace, for example, I use the example of a transformer. If you're going to do a significant transformer replacement, that life of the transformer could be 30 to 50 years. Now, in cash basis, what you typically do is you have no increases for a while, and then you have this big spike to pay for that big capital improvement. On a utility basis, you have small levelized rate increases. Because what happens is ratepayers over the next 30 to 50 years are going to enjoy that transformer, are going to enjoy these capital improvements. So it should be spread out over a long period of time. And so what we work on is stabilized, levelized rates. And with 75% off allocations, you guys are in a great position with very low competitive electric rates right now. The key is to keep the utility in kind of good financial status on cash reserves and net income levels. So what we do is we have that pro forma. At that point, we do an executive summary, which is just about a 7 to 8 page document that would be passed out to all of you guys that would explain everything we would do in a presentation. So we would come back, to get a little into the staff. I'm 4 years into the industry. I started out at Nebraska Public Power District as a substation engineer, designing and constructing substations in their transmission distribution department. My superior, Phil Euler, who could not be here today, he's actually doing another presentation right now. We do about 60 studies a year. He literally wrote the book on cost of service. He was at Lincoln Electric System for 40 years. He worked privately for Utility Financial Solutions, and he teaches around the country for the American Public Power Association. So he's a good guy to learn under. You guys would get to know him. He would be here with me the next time we would come present when we actually do the cost of service study. And we get direction at that point from council if they like our recommendations, then what we do is we don't design 5 years of rates. Anybody who knows the industry knows that when things change in the industry, they change fast and they change significantly. So we design 2 years of rates looking outwards. And then we come back in 2 years and start the process all over again. So essentially, we do a 4-year agreement, which you get 2 full studies. You get one right away and one in 2 years. Now one question is, well, how fast is the turnaround? We like to say by the time we get all the data back from the city, about 60 days from the time we have all the data to the time you guys get your final report. And what we do is it's all inclusive. We do final report, final ordinance, rate forms, all the different classes. For the sake of time, I'll briefly get into cost of service. Essentially, cost of service is broken up into classes. Not every user uses electricity the same way. A residential user doesn't use electricity the same way as a grain dryer or an irrigation customer. They have, for example, an irrigation customer or industrial customer, they have very large loads and then periods of dead time. So you have to have a lot of capacity, a big peaking to serve this load, but you don't get a lot of kilowatt hours. You don't get a lot of commodity charge. Therefore, you have things like you break up the components into a demand and energy charge. And you also have a customer charge to recover your fixed costs. Because even if they don't use 1 kilowatt hour, they still have the ability to, and they still have the ability to use electricity. You still have all that in place. You have the meter at the house, so that's why you have a customer charge. So what happens is we break up those classes. We break up all the components, and this is pretty much where all the requests are probably similar. The basic cost of service principles. You break up the expenses and put them in their components, whether they're fixed costs or allocated to energy or the commodity. And you allocate and you look at each class. And what you typically find is one class is being subsidized by the other. So you'll have, and I don't know which one it is, and I've seen all different counts, but let's say the residential class is being subsidized by the industrial class or the commercial class. Well, in cost of service, you wouldn't want to, if let's say the residential class was 10% under cost of service and the commercial class was 10% over, you're not going to lower the commercial class 10% rates and raise the residential 10%. What you do is you slowly work towards it. So if we came in and said, okay, we're going to do a 3% increase, we would ask council for a threshold. And we might say, we'd like to have let's say 1.5% threshold to move classes towards their cost of service. And by cost of service, I just mean what it actually costs to serve that customer, because it costs the utility different amounts, like I said. So we might come and say we have a 3% aggregate increase for the utility, but we can raise rates up to 4.5% on a class, or as little as 1.5% on a class. So what you do is, the whole point of this is you're slowly moving classes to what it costs the utility to serve. Helps the utility budget, helps the customer's budget on their side, what it actually is costing them to serve load. As far as the organization, like I said, we have about 12 utilities in Iowa. I made a list of some of them. We do cost of service for all of them. They'd be references for you: Waverly, Indianola, Sergeant Bluff, Carlisle, Denver, Rockford, Buffalo, Wall Lake, Breda, and just about by Fonda, and sign them up as well. The reason I'm here is actually a good reason, I imagine, is our quote came in very low. And so the question was, why are you guys so cheap? Which is a lot easier to defend than why are you guys so expensive. So the bottom line is we are a nonprofit. We do things at cost. We have 200 members, about 70 of them do, 60 to 70 of them, it rotates, some go in and out, do cost of service studies. And we do water, wastewater, and electric. And we would have a quote for that. And what we do is we base it off meters. And so we have staff that does lots of different things. For example, I would be the lead probably on a lot of the data, developing the pro forma and executive summary, but we have another engineer in our staff that deals mainly with the RTOs. And RTOs, I mean regional transmission organizations. And it's going to give the utilities some headaches. It probably already has. MISO right now is what Iowa has switched to.